Hi, my name is Bill Stevick from bobdivelymodels. Today we're going to go over installing the SkyCandy incredibly bright landing lights in this boomerang Taurus wing. We're going to use the installation kit that we supply with this setup. We're going to go step by step how to lay it out, cut the wing, install the housing, install the lights, the wiring system, put the leading edge lens on, and we should have a completed unit in somewhere around an hour. So we'll see how that works. Okay, what we're going to look at, we're going to put 2 lights in each wing. So we're going to need 2 sets of lights. They come packaged like this. There's a lot of instructions on here. Make sure you read these. We don't want to put more than 6 volts in these lights. Believe me, at 4.8, they're as bright as they can be. 6 volts isn't going to help you any better. So keep that in mind when you're using them. They come in a package like this. We're just going to take them out of the package and install them in these housings. Now these housings come with the installation kit. You get 2 housings, you get 2 lenses, you get all the wiring you need. This wiring has all of the heat shrink tubing. It's got voltage regulators so that you don't put over 6 volts into the lights. And most importantly, it comes with this cool template. Now, the most important thing about the template is you got to cut this out. Now, I've already cut one out. And one of the nice things, you got to cut it exactly on the lines. We're going to set this thing down. It aligns with the trailing edge of the wing, and it gives you a perfect location to put that light in. So we're going to just cut right there. Now, once we start this project, what we're going to have is some equipment. Now, what we need is a saw, need some glue, some tape, sanding block, X-Acto knife, and a pair of scissors. That should pretty much cover everything we need to do this project. So with all of that in place, we're ready to start. We're going to take the wing, make sure that the top of the wing is up, lay it down on something that's not going to scratch it. We're going to take the template. Now the template, we already cut it out. We cut it right on the lines. And this is for the left wing. All right, it goes placed for the left wing. You turn it over, you can use it on the right wing. All right, it's got everything written here. You want to align this with the trailing edge. You want to align this with the notch in the thing for the spoiler. You want to make sure you get it square. And you want to take some tape. And what we're going to do is going to tape this in place so it doesn't move on us. I use low-tack tape just so we don't pull the fabric or the covering loose when we take it off. And we want to just make sure that this thing is secure because we don't want it to move. Okay, now what we have is a template for our cut. We're going to take, I use a Stabilo pencil because it writes on everything and you can wash it off with water. And we're just going to write down across here like this. We're going to put our lines on here. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing here. This line across the back is the most important one because you don't want to cut it too deep. And once you get that done, you have your line all drawn out nice and neatly. At this point, you can take the template off, and there we have it. Perfect line. We're ready to cut. So now we can start cutting. Okay, we got our lines. We're ready to start cutting. Start with a brand new X-Acto knife, and we're just going to very carefully cut straight down this line. Right now, all I'm doing is cutting through the covering material. I'm not cutting into the wing yet. better to make 5 shallow cuts than to try to do it in one, because if you do, you're going to break the wood, crack it, and you don't want to do that. So we're going to just cut very carefully right on the line. And if there's any doubt, cut inside the line, because you can always sand it to the right size, but you can't do anything if you make it too big. And because the wing is already painted, making it too big is not an option. I'm going to cut through here. Takes a little bit more work cutting across the grain like we're doing now, but once you get it cut, then we're just going to take a cut across here to cut the fabric, and that piece comes off, and we got a nice looking hole there. We're going to turn it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. This is probably the most tedious part of the whole project. Everything else is easy compared to this. And if you notice, it went right through on this side. So what that tells me is this wood on this side of the wing is softer than the wood on the other side of the wing. That means I got to be more careful cutting this line, because it would be very easy to break this. So we don't want to push on that knife very hard at all. We just want to very slowly cut through it. And we'll get the other side. Try to avoid the temptation to do this with the saw. Seems like that would be faster and easier. Don't do it. Because now we have a nice, clean cut. I'm going to take the razor saw. Now, I use this Japanese saw, but you can use pretty much any razor saw. Just cut that leading edge. And that's our cut. We are now ready to test fit the light housing. Okay, we have our hole, we have our housing, we're ready to start putting this together. Now when we go to fit this in place, if it's a little tight, which if you cut it right, it should be a little tight. What you'll want to do is take your sanding block and just very carefully make sure you even up the edges. If you want to, you can make this front edge just a little bigger. Make sure the line stays straight and you won't have any problems with it. Now, once you get it to this point, we're ready to start putting this, check this fit on this, and it slides in perfectly. So, now, there's how it's supposed to fit. And now we are ready to start drawing it, cutting it, and making it fit perfectly so that we can then install the lights and then have this whole section ready to go. Okay, we have this thing fit in place, and the fit is nice, it's tight, it's square, everything's good. Now we're going to take our pencil, we're going to draw a line around here, and I'm going to turn it around here and draw our line on this side. Make sure you hold it down in place when you draw the line so that you don't accidentally draw the line too far back and then it will be too small. So we're going to draw that line. Now the other thing we need to look at is inside here we're going to want to cut along that line also. Alright, once that's done, we pull that out. You can see we have our line here, we have our line there, and that's where the scissors come in. Actually, before we cut it, it would be easier, get a little cutting board here, if we cut these flaps off out of our way. And we can do that with the knife pretty easily. cord along that line, and then it'll just break off. We want to leave this little edge on here, and I'll show you why in a minute. Cut that one. Okay. Now that little edge we left on there is going to cover the balsa edge that we have here. If we didn't have that lip on there, this thing would go right back inside there, and that would not be a good thing. Plus, this makes it kind of strong. So this replaces the fact that we took the leading edge out of here. Now, this is the next thing we're going to cut with the scissors. And you want to cut either right on the line or just inside of it. Just be careful you don't cut it too small, because this is going to be your reflector. Now, I like to use these Lexan scissors. They seem to do a nice job. And we'll cut that nice and smooth. If it's a little big, don't worry, because we can file it off later, which we definitely want to do. Okay, so there is our housing. Now, we're done with this. So now we can put that housing in and see how it looks as a finished unit. Okay, there we go. And that's what it looks like as a finished unit. Now you might find you got a little lip up here. We can trim that off later, but that's exactly how it's going to go in. That's exactly how it's going to fit. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to cut the back out of here so we can put the lights in. You can cut it with a knife if you're careful. You can cut it with scissors. You can cut it with a saw. Doesn't really make much difference. I'm going to do it with a knife part way, and then I'm going to take the scissors and do it the rest of the way, because it's kind of hard to cut this sometimes. You don't want to cut too much of it, because this is what holds your lights in place. Now once I get a place to get the scissors in, then I can cut this out. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to cut just down onto the flat. So I'm cutting that little rolled edge off the back, because I don't need that on there at all. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Cut it enough to get the scissors in there. Cut it with the scissors. And then we're going to cut that lip off all the way around. So we have our light housing all ready to go. There we go. And that's what that should look like when it's done. Now, you want to see I got a little lip here. I'm going to trim that off a little bit. There we go. Okay, now we're going to take our lights, just pop them out of the package like this. Slide them in. Now, they have a nice friction fit. They fit really nice. They slide in there just as easy as can be, and there you have it. That's your fitting. Everything is the way it should be. Now we're going to put a little dab of glue on the back here so they don't come loose, but for the most part it's not necessary. So when you put this in, put this test fit it with the lights, because sometimes it swells up a little bit when you put the lights in, and there you go. And that is your unit. Now the only thing that's left to do is trim these edges a little bit, glue this thing in place, put the wiring harness in, and we're good to go. Okay, now we're ready to start putting the thing together. What you get in the kit is a Y harness for the lights, voltage regulator, and some heat shrink tubing. Now what you want to do, put your voltage regulator on, You want to put your heat shrink tubing on, shrink it down, and I've done all that already on this one. Now what I've done is I put the lights in, and I put a little bit of silicone on here just to hold them in place so they don't come loose. We also painted them silver. So also you might want to notice that the outboard light sticks out just a little bit further than the inboard light. Doesn't have to do that, but if it looks a little better if you do it that way. We hooked them up, put the heat shrink on it, and now we're ready to install it. So I put a wire down through the inside. You can see the hook here, and we're just going to stick the wire through here. Close the hook on the wire, bring it all down through the wing. That goes in pretty good. So that's done, and now we're ready to install this in where it's going to go. Okay, goes in like that. And now we're pretty much ready to start gluing it in place. Everything looks good. How's that look to you? Does that look good? Okay, now we know everything fits. It all looks good, but there's one more thing we want to check before we go any further. And that's to make sure that in the process of handling the lights, we didn't knock any wires loose or damage them in any way. So we want to just hook it up to the battery real quick just to make sure they both work. And look at that. They work. Wow. Okay, I'm blind now. All right. Okay, so we got that going on. Now what we're going to do is want to glue on this lip right here, on the top and on the bottom, and then we're going to push the light into place and hold it there till the glue sets a little bit, and then after that glue has set, then we'll glue the tabs in. That way we don't slop glue all over the place. So what I have is thick CA, and I'm going to put that on here right across this. Nice even bead. Okay. And turn it over. This is why we're using thick CA, so it doesn't drip off. Bead across that. And now I'm going to stand it up. I'm going to slide this down in place. I'm going to hold it until it sets. Making sure that we don't have any glue slopped out all over the place. We don't want that. If you do, wipe it forward, not backward. That way you don't get it on the wing. And we're good, and we're in. And that's a nice joint across there. Nice joint across there. Can you see that? We're not going to worry about that little bit of balsa that we can see. There's a couple of tricks we can do with that later. And now what you can see is this is in. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue the tips on. Once those are glued in place, then we'll finish the edges and put the lenses in place. So let's go ahead and put some glue on here. I have to hold this for a minute since it's not thin. It takes a little bit longer to set. but it does set pretty fast on the balsa wood anyway, so we're good. Okay, that one's in. Do the same thing on the other side. A little bit of glue here on the edge. Put it across the leading edge and the tip. Pop that in place. Put that off a little bit. Okay. Okay, everything is glued in place and we're ready to start final finishing. If you run your finger across here, you might feel an edge sticking up on your plastic. Feel a little edge right here where it didn't get trimmed quite down to the thing. If you use a file, you can very carefully file toward the wing like this. And if you file toward the wing like this, what will happen is you'll get to the wing and it will stop filing. And if you don't file it too far, you'll get a perfect edge across there. But one thing you might notice is it leaves a white line. Now there's a couple of things you can do. Say you didn't get this cut perfectly straight, or it's a little rough along the edge. You just didn't get it quite right. You can cut little strips of aluminum foil tape, and you can make a tape edge all the way around this thing so that it looks just like this, which gives you a really nice finished look. You just put it on there, and you can put it across here so that you get a nice finished look. Or if you don't want to take the time to do that, you can do what I'm going to do. And on this particular one, what I'm going to do is take a red magic marker. It'd be different if it wasn't a red wing, but all I'm going to do is take a red magic marker and I'm going to run it along here like this, and I'm going to paint that edge red. Just like that. And watch how it just disappears. Okay. You want to be careful you don't get it on the inside on that silver. And you can kind of get away with that pretty well. You know, you don't really notice the edge now. Now the next thing you're going to have to do is you want to put the lens on. Now the lens is oversized, so when you put the lens in place, what you see is you've got a lot of room around it. So what we want to do is we want to cut the lens so it's about 1/4 of an inch over all the way around. So the easiest way to do that is get some 1/4 inch tape and just make yourself a border, just like this. I'm just going to do this on the top for right now, so you can see how it's done. You would normally do this all the way around. But just lay that in place like that. And this gives you your edges. Now your lens will match the cutout perfectly. So you want to put that on there like that. Get yourself a little piece of blue tape. Hold it in place. Just like that. Now, take your pencil and make a mark. I'm going to follow that down, just like that. Make a mark. this will give you your cutting line on your lens. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we have a straight line and a straight line, and what we'll do is we'll cut this lens on that straight line, put it back on here, and it should be absolutely perfect. Okay, we cut the lens down and we put a piece of tape on it. The lens is now cut to the right size. Let's lay it on here and see what it looks like. Okay, as you can see, we're perfect 1/4 inch all the way around. Top and bottom looks good. Alright, now the scary part, putting glue on it. Alright, I'm going to use the RC56. I'm going to put a little glue all around the edges. If you have a better way of doing this, feel perfectly free to do it. This is just a way, not necessarily the only way. Okay, now let's get this lined up right on the money the first time. That looks pretty good. Now we'll use the tape to pull it down. And do the same thing on the top. Pull it down in place. Make sure we got glue all the way around. Don't worry about what it looks like. It'll dry crystal clear and you'll never see it. You just want to make sure that the edges are down all the way around, and if there's any little bit of glue that oozes out, we can always trim it off later. If you see an area where you're not getting contact, like right here, what we're going to do is put a little bit more tape on it so we can hold it in place. We don't want any loose edges anywhere. There we go. Once that starts to set, we'll be in good shape. So we're going to especially make sure we get a good bond across that top edge. And let this sit overnight, and there, it's finished. That's all we need to do. Okay, here's one of the wings we finished earlier. Now this one, what we did after we put the lens on, we went back and put some little screws in it, give it the effect of a bolted on. This is for a military scheme, so we thought it might look better if it was held on with rivets. It's still glued in place. We just put the screws in later, but it gives it a nice military look, I think. And like I told you before about trimming it with aluminum foil, we did that on another wing. And this is one we trimmed with the aluminum foil. You see what that looks like. And we put some little pins on this one too, just to make it look like it was riveted in place. So those are a couple of the different things that you can do. We also make this this light for other wings in addition to this one. So you can see this is one that just has one light in it, and it's a little smaller. So we have a lot of options available. Just check out our website and see there's going to be things coming down the road all the time. We're going to be making a lot of different stuff. So thanks for your attention, and good luck with getting that wing done.